Welcome to Educator Job Searches. This is Video 2, Applications and Resumes. My name is Dr. David Conrad. I'm a professor in the College of Education and Human Development here at Governor State University. And if you have any questions about the job search process, please reach out to me or any of your professors and we'll be happy to answer your questions. There are two learning objectives for Video 2. First, students will apply strategies for writing job applications. And second, students will understand how employers screen applications. Let's take a moment to talk about the application process. For most Illinois school districts, they use Frontline Recruitment, or AppleTrack, as their software package for collecting applications for employment. AppleTrack is a tool that many districts use to gather your application materials, your resume. There's an online application that you submit. You upload copies of your licensure and other information. It's important that you start applying now. In fact, typically students can begin applying during their student teaching, or even sooner if you feel like districts are going to employ someone either during the student teaching process or prior to licensure. So you can start applying as early as it fits your circumstances. I would target some school districts that you think you'd like to work at. Maybe it's school districts near your home. Maybe you've targeted a few school districts because there's a reason that you would really like to work in that school. Apply now, even if there's not a job posting, because you can sign up for job posted notices so that anytime the school district puts on a job posting and updates their website, if you meet the criteria, you'll get an email that says, go back to the website and look for the job posting. You can always return later to apply for positions once they're posted. When it comes to filling out applications with student teaching and graduation, you can use your anticipated graduation date for completion and licensure when describing your Governor State University program. So for example, if you begin your student teaching in the spring semester in January, I would put that your degree and licensure is expected in May of that year. If you begin your student teaching in the fall, you could state that your graduation date and licensure anticipation is December. When you fill out applications, it's important to enter accurate data. Principals are going to use search filters to find applications that have been submitted to the school districts. If you enter a license, but you don't select the correct license, you may not make it into the principal's search if he's looking for the correct license and you have not indicated that in your application. It's really important that you enter accurate data about your qualifications, your experiences, your interests, and particularly licensures and certifications. I recommend that you update your application periodically on the website. Go back and enter any information that would be helpful. Update dates if you have new updated employment or you have additional supplemental information. Keep your application updated periodically. And finally, you have the opportunity to upload creative materials to supplement your application. Maybe you've got a great video of a lesson that you delivered. Maybe you have a great lesson plan or other artifacts or documentation that can creatively show your great qualities as an educator. As long as the video can be shared publicly and you're not worried about issues of student confidentiality, there shouldn't be any student faces in those videos. If you've got appropriate videos and other materials to upload, supplement your application and show the quality of your teaching. There are typical application materials that most school districts will ask for. First, you'll want to complete the application. It'll ask you things like your name, your address, the dates of all of your employment, names of supervisors, etc. You'll want to upload a resume, and your resume should focus on your education experiences, although other employment can also be listed. Letters of recommendation and contact information should be uploaded into your application materials. And make sure you include contact information for those letter writers, including phone numbers and email addresses. School administrators will want to contact those people who wrote on your behalf and ask them to verify information about your work. At this point, you can upload scanned copies of transcripts or unofficial grade reports. Don't feel like you need to spend the money and send an official transcript copy to every district that you apply for. Simply scan copies of your unofficial grade report, and that will suffice for now. Once you're employed, or sometimes when they're getting closer to the final candidate status, they may ask for those official transcripts. You'll want to write a cover letter that explains your interest in the position and explains why you're seeking employment in that school district. And finally, it's a good idea to go into your ELIS account, and once you've got your licensures, print off a PDF, do a screenshot that shows what your licenses are within your ELIS account. Upload that as part of your application. Once you've applied for a job, how do school leaders screen applicants? How do education employers decide which applicants to invite for the next step? To help you understand this process, we've broken it down into two different levels. Level 1 we'll call professional characteristics. This is where you submit the application. Principals and school leaders are looking for these items on a professional characteristics basis. They're looking at your certifications and licensure. They're looking to match your life and professional experiences to the position. We'll talk about proximation in just a moment. They're looking at your references in your letters, your extracurricular sponsorship potential, your community participation and service, your writing quality and written questions, and your GPA, academic ability, and college reputation, although the items on that final bullet are less likely. Level 2 are more about personal characteristics. When we invite you to an interview or a performance or a sample teaching lesson, we're trying to get more information from you on a personal basis. What are we looking for in this second level with interviews? We're looking for personal appearance, your confidence and poise, your communication skills, knowledge. Perhaps you'll teach a lesson or provide a teaching sample. And there's a growing use of video screening by school districts where they send you a link and you record a video answer to a question and send it back electronically. I mentioned the term proximation on the last slide. Teaching is a local phenomenon, and research has shown that geography has a strong influence on hiring teachers for employment. Education employees look for candidates with similar life and professional experiences to the school, and that's where proximation comes from. If I'm hiring somebody to be a successful urban high school English teacher, I'm probably going to look for a candidate who has experiences in urban education. Perhaps they grew up in a city school, perhaps they student taught or did observations in a large urban high school. I'm going to look for candidates whose experiences, whether it's life or professional, are similar to the school's characteristics where I'm hiring them to teach in. We also know that persons hired near their hometown or college are perceived by principals as more likely to remain in the position. So school leaders are often looking for people who live near the area or grew up near the area where the school is located, because we think they're more likely to remain in the position. And in fact, the research has shown that teachers do stay in the jobs more often when they get hired near their hometown or where they grew up. Finally, student teachers are often hired in the district where they are student taught. There are a couple of reasons. First, principals have a chance to watch student teachers live in action. That builds confidence. If we know that someone has a great quality that we really want to have in our school, we've actually seen it. We've seen the student teachers demonstrate their qualities, so we're more likely to hire them. Second, because they are near that school district, they're probably living nearby. Maybe that school district is near the place where they went to college. They're more likely to stick around. So student teachers are often getting hired in the district where they student teach. And today, with the teacher shortage, this is even more common. If a district has a student teacher who's doing a great job, principals are likely to employ that person right away to keep them for the following school year. We've talked about the importance of geographic location, but sometimes life changes require you to move or relocate to a different school district. So if you have a proximation change coming, you can handle this through your application and your cover letter. If you plan a proximation change, provide a brief explanation somewhere in your application or cover letter. And here are two examples. The first one, I'm seeking employment in the Chicago area to join my spouse who is transferred to McDonald's headquarters. I would write that in a cover letter if suddenly I'm moving from Peoria to Chicago. I want to tell my future employers why I'm making this geographic change. Here's a second example. Although my recent experience is in a rural school, I am anxious to return to my hometown in Elgin. Perhaps I've student taught in Southern Illinois, or most of my experience as a teacher has been outside of the suburbs, down in a rural school district. But I really want to return to Elgin, which happens to be the largest school district outside of CPS in Illinois. Elgin is the second largest school district overall. Well, if I'm the principal in Elgin and I see an application of someone who only worked in very small or rural schools, I might question whether that person is ready or equipped to be a teacher in my school district. But if I know that they grew up in Elgin and that's where they graduated from and that's the hometown that they know, that's going to give me more confidence of their potential success in my urban school district. If the location where you grew up would be helpful, include this somewhere in the application, but not in the resume. There are some situations where it makes sense to put the high school and location of the high school where you graduated because you want to signal to the employer where you grew up and where you lived previously, but you wouldn't include that in your resume. You only need to include that hometown location if you think it would be helpful for a particular job. As principals review the applications, they will be asking, why are you the best candidate? Use your application to tell your story. What unique skills set you apart from other applicants? On this list, the first bullet says extracurricular skills and talents. In other words, coaching. As an early childhood educator, you might not think about extracurricular opportunities as an important employment qualification. But if you're employed in a K-8 school district, early childhood educators may need to fill vacancies like middle school track coach or student council sponsor. Just because the extracurricular event is not happening in your building doesn't mean that you won't have an opportunity to pick up those extra stipend positions, which often come with additional pay. So if you have experience in athletics, maybe you wrestled competitively in high school, or you were a singer in the show choir, maybe you've been involved in high school drama, or you competed on the college gaming team. Think about all the kinds of extracurricular activities that schools need to staff, and make sure in your applications and your resumes you indicate what your qualifications are and your interests in those various extracurricular activities. In Frontline, when you apply using AppleTrack, there's actually a menu where you're going to check boxes next to the various extracurricular activities that schools might have. Make sure you indicate any extracurricular sponsorship possibilities that you could fill. Second, if you have any extra teaching endorsements, they provide hiring flexibility. So even as an early childhood educator, if you also have a middle school math endorsement, there may be a time where the district needs to have someone for 1 or 2 periods teaching 6th grade math, and you might be able to fill that need. So when districts are hiring candidates, they're looking for people that have extra teaching endorsements and as much hiring flexibility as possible. Third, if you have paraprofessional experience, make sure you highlight that on your resume. I might even list it first in my area of experience if I haven't worked as a full-time educator before. Having parapro experience will set you ahead of other candidates who have not been employed in schools yet. First, you have an employment track record with your school district, and second, you've observed a lot of teaching in your career that will make you stronger in your first opportunity. Fourth, have you ever done any summer work serving youth, such as summer youth camps or other summer work that would involve schools and kids? Fifth, do you have experience with special needs populations? And sometimes those go hand in hand. Maybe you worked at a summer special rec league that served special needs populations in sports activities. Make sure you document that special needs work. And finally, and this is critical for school districts, if you have fluency in multiple languages or maybe sign language, make sure you highlight that in your cover letter, in your resume. Having the ability to speak in a language other than English, especially Spanish and sign language, those are critical skills that districts are looking for, and those can set you ahead of other candidates. Many of your applications will ask you additional screening questions. Sometimes they'll ask a few open-ended questions about education, and you'll need to provide a written response as part of your application. The format is typically one paragraph. Answer those written questions with 5 to 8 sentences, and always start with a topic sentence. We recommend that you write your answers in Word or Google Docs first. You want to edit and proofread carefully, use Grammarly or Microsoft Editor. Answer concisely and directly. Use active tense and use action verbs. Use sequence and transition words to have a smooth flow of ideas, such as first, next, finally. Copy and paste your response into the application as plain text, and keep a running record of all of these written responses that you've prepared, because sometimes another application may ask the same or similar question. Here are examples of screening questions you might encounter when candidates are asked to provide a written response. How will you engage students using one-to-one technology? How do you assess student learning in progress? How do you use the data from assessments? How will you establish rapport with students and families to create a positive learning environment? What would your first day of teaching look like when students arrive in your classroom? And how do you plan your lessons? Again, we recommend that you keep copies of your written responses to help you with future applications. When writing your application, use formal English with accurate spelling and grammar. It is important to proofread carefully. Write with concise descriptions and strong action verbs. Avoid text lingo and emoticons. And we encourage you to use hyperlinks to help your principals find evidence of your work that you've uploaded on the internet. But when you include a hyperlink, try to embed the link like shown in the second bullet, and avoid long strings of random letters that can clutter up your application. Make it easy for your applicant reader to go to your website or to your Twitter account or to your link by embedding the link instead. You must submit resumes as part of your application. Though while resumes are very important, we still emphasize the importance of the application. The application is really the most important part of your overall submission. When writing a resume, use a conservative business format with traditional fonts. Use text only. Do not include photographs either of yourself or of your students, and do not include any images on your resume. Your resume must emphasize your licensures, because those are the qualifications that principals are going to be looking for first. Are you qualified for the position? And if you include hyperlinks, make sure you resolve them within your resume. Here is a sample of a high-quality resume from a fictitious candidate named Teresa Sample Teacher. You'll notice at the top of her document is her name, her address, and all of her contact information. And then the next thing, it lists what kind of job Teresa is looking for. There's a brief statement that describes what kind of jobs that she's interested in, and then a table where we've listed areas of expertise. In addition, we've listed what her certification is, because principals must know what you're licensed in order to employ you for a particular position. In this resume, we've listed 2 pieces of professional experience. One was a student teaching experience, and also was a summer camp where Teresa supervised counselors for a residential youth camp. On this resume, we included 3 additional experiences because we felt they were relevant to her work as a teacher and a leader. And finally, we have information about her education and training and some of the awards and distinctions that Teresa received. This resume is from candidate Charles Danielson. For this candidate, we started with teacher qualifications, and we included a bulleted list with certifications, interest in technology, interest in coaching basketball and wrestling, and some strengths that Charles brings to the profession. Under education, we've listed the associate and bachelor's degrees along with the honor of earning the dean's list. And then at the end of the resume, we've highlighted some experience like student teaching and field experience. This format is ideal for someone who is early career that may not have a lot of employment experiences for the resume. For help with your resume, there are several options on the Governor State University campus. First, you can contact GSU Career Services. They will provide a resume review, proofreading, and some other help to ensure that your resume looks great. Their website is www.govst.edu/career-services. Second, if you would like a Word template of the 2 resume examples from the previous slides, plus a third resume template, email me at dconrad@govst.edu. I'll be happy to share with you a Word copy of those resumes so that you can edit them and include your own information. Third, for help, ask your professors. They would be happy to review your resume and provide some feedback. And finally, ask your school leader where you are working or student teaching to review your resume. School leaders have looked at lots of resumes on lots of applications, and your principal, assistant principal, or other school leader will be happy to review your resume for you. In addition, you'll be signaling that you are interested in education employment, and maybe this will help them to remember you when there's a vacancy open that you could qualify for. You'll need to submit letters of recommendation in your applications. It's important to have positive job references. We recommend 3 letters as a minimum and 5 letters as a maximum. And who should you ask? First, you should ask your cooperating or mentor teachers. So whomever was helping you and mentoring you during your student teaching, one of those persons should provide a letter for you. Second, ask your principal or administrator at your teaching or workforce site. Invite the principal to come into your classroom during your student teaching so that you have an opportunity to showcase your great teaching to someone who might be hiring you someday. Third, you can ask one professor who knows your teaching, such as your university supervisor. Typically, educators' applications will only have 1 letter from a university professor. If you have a very unique relationship with a second professor, such as someone you did a research project with, or someone who really knows your teaching very well, then you could include a second letter from a GSU professor, but typically 1 is fine. And finally, I caution you to use non-educators only when they can speak to your teaching potential. If you've been employed as a waitress, the employer at your restaurant is probably not equipped to talk about your skills as a teacher. But if you worked at a summer camp and you supervised a recreation activity for kids, maybe that employer would have information to talk about your teaching potential and the ability to motivate and inspire children. Understand that administrators also rely on verbal job references from their peer social and professional networks. So it's really important if you can invite your principal or other administrator in your school to come in and observe you during your student teaching, that could be very valuable later on. The principal may be at a luncheon where another principal says, "Hey, I've got a math opening. Does anybody know any math student teachers? Is anyone doing a great job?" Well, your principal, if they've seen you teach 8th grade math, maybe they would recommend you to their peers. The networks amongst school administrators are very important, and many administrators rely on those verbal job references. In your letters of recommendation and other parts of your application, you must include email addresses and cell phones for all of those references so that your hiring administrator can contact those people, especially during the summer. You have to know that districts will Google you. It is now common practice with all human resources offices that your social media accounts will be examined. There will be an internet search of your online activity, any images or videos that you've posted, and any blog or chat posts. If you have internet materials that need to be cleaned up, now is the time, because districts will Google you before they hire you. Effective communication is important throughout the job application process, and email is always the best contact method with administrators. If you receive a phone call or an email, please return those communications promptly. If you're contacted by a school leader for an interview but you already have a job, thank that leader and let them know you've accepted another offer. It is always okay to leave messages with the office administrative assistants or secretaries. And remember that you want to keep your doors open by following up and providing honest communication with hiring administrators that may open the door to future opportunities in that school district. In conclusion, your application and other materials tell your story. Provide concise, descriptive details that help administrators know the great things that you bring to the table. Proofread carefully and seek critical friends to review your application materials. Good luck, and if you have any questions, please reach out to me or any of your professors for more assistance.